Well, we're on. Hello and
Oh,
welcome to episode 308 of Long Toss. I'm Scott Belford. This is the walk off. We are live right now on YouTube. So if you are in the chat, feel free to give us a thumbs up, a like there, and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. The chat is already rolling through. We'll start with Deb here, who says probably going to be a super chill, upbeat long toss. Not much to talk about. Yes, such positive vibes is what I'm sure you can get from this panel today. It seems like those old adages are really adding up here. The sky is falling, right? Chicken Little. When it rains, it pours. It's just been a rough week as a Blue Jays fan. 6 losses in a row now. That is the second series sweep there in Cleveland today. And we are going to introduce the panel and we're going to get into it. Lots to talk about. We'll obviously break down this Blue Jays and Guardians series. Orelvis Martinez, of course, the number 2 prospect in this Blue Jays system, handed out an 80-game PED suspension. Stuart Baroa was called up. So funny how it's the worst day in Orelvis Martinez's career, and Stuart Baroa, best day of his life. He was beaming on the bench. He was just having a great time putting the jacket on Vladdy, doing little dances. He cannot believe he is a big leaguer. So baseball is a funny little game. Varsho day to day. We'll touch on that. Our jobs on the line. They freaking better be. Shapiro was in Cleveland. Was he just visiting homies? Last time he was on the road with this team, Charlie Montoyo lost his job. We'll see what happens there. We'll do a Seattle Mariners minute, catch up on where the Mariners are at. We'll talk the All-Star game. Who should be let in? Paul Skeens is the guy I want to see in the All-Star game, but you know what? According to the way baseball runs, he hasn't played enough games. We'll see if they'll make an exception because he is a very exciting guy. Okay, so a few things to touch on. Number one, our go-to, our Iron Lady, Jen, baseball Jen. She is a teacher and she is in full marking mode, so she is missing today. However, she's fingers crossed. The kids are done and out of her hair and all that stuff, and she's back next week. All the best with her as obviously the school season wrapping up. And Joel, hey, Kami, also always here, but he is sick as can be. So we've got a whole new panel, basically. A couple of regulars that we haven't seen in a while. Let's start with that. Lewis Foster, welcome back to the walk-off, buddy. Thanks you could take some time and join us for Long Toss here. You really picked a tumultuous week to come back on the show.
Yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts festering in my mind, and I think I need to get them out somewhere. So this is about as good of a place.
Very excited to have from the walk-off Mariners, Juan Forno joining us again. Juan, pretty excited here. We've got a big show coming up here. The Blue Jays playing the Mariners at this end of basically this meat grinder of a stretch that the Jays are on. And we've got Taylor Sacedo coming down, Keegan Matheson, Blue Jays reporter joining us there. So it should be a good show, buddy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. We're gonna have a lot of fun for sure. So, tickets are still available. Hope to see everybody there for sure.
Our producer and one-time panelist. He's broken his cherry. He's back, though, producing a heck of a long toss. Johnny Eaton, welcome back, buddy. How was your weekend?
Thanks for having me. Weekend's been pretty chill. I don't know. I've been watching the Blue Jays mostly and crying a lot.
Crying.
Waking up to a wet pillow.
Yeah. If you're not crying, you're laughing at this point. Like it's the emotions are almost crossing. From Jaybird Watching Podcast, so excited to have back on the show. It's been a little while, but always pleased when you can make time. Craig, how was your weekend, man?
Weekend's been fine, as long as I don't turn on the TV, but that's besides the point. But things are all good. Could they be better? Of course, because this team could actually be something. But right now, obviously, we're all in I'm going to say the world of 2017 promises is kind of what I feel like at the moment. But here we are. Let's see who gets fired.
Yeah, yeah. Michael Borland says, I imagine it's going to be tough for Scott Belford to talk shit in Seattle. in a few weeks. Very true. I mean, there was a time, and it didn't feel that long ago, gentlemen, where the Mariners and the Blue Jays felt like they were in a real race for a wild card spot. I know the last couple of years that's been the case. They played each other in the wild card, and now not so much. It's how it goes from 40-40 men, now 40-40 man.
I am
Jeff,
40-40
welcome
man.
back, buddy.
Thanks, man. I don't even know what to say right now, to be honest with you. When you asked for a topic for us to come with today, I'm like, I think we're all going to come with the same ones. But to supplement myself for the summer season, I am working for a catering company, and it's barbecue season, baby. And I'm serving sirloin burgers like you wouldn't believe, and that's making me very happy.
Well, you got to find other ways to be happy because this Blue Jays team is not getting it done for us. I do appreciate everyone who is currently in the chat. We'll get to as many as your comments as possible. Feel free to hit that like button. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe. So let's start with one positive here. Okay? The Buffalo Boys. Minus Orelvis Martinez, an incredible disappointment right now. But the rest of the Buffalo Boys have been incredibly impressive this season. Spencer Horwitz, a guy who has been highly touted, but also, isn't that young, exciting prospect that everyone wants to get behind, 27 years old in July here. Finally pushed the Jays front office to the brink, and obviously poor play got him called up. And since then, he has been absolutely on fire. Listen, this dude has a 480 on base percentage since June 7th, since his call up. Like, I know it's a small sample size, but to have a 450 on base percentage in AAA and then take the jump to the big leagues and exceed it, he has a great eye at the plate. We're seeing some power out of him. He hit two dingers today. So let's go to you, Lewis. Listen, obviously, this isn't what we want to be talking about, which is basically prospect development and looking towards the future. But if there is a bright spot to be talked about, Spencer Horwitz has to be one of them.
Yeah, I sort of go over in my mind about different ways the Jays could go. And I think a rebuild is something that I want to see done with a new group of guys in the front office. And we'll see if that happens. But at the same time, I'm like giving Horwitz a guy that could play 145 games a year. Guys like Schneider in that boat as well. There's plenty of guys in AAA. I know Riley Toretta is the guy who's really picking up steam down in AAA. Like, there could be some really fun teams that suck, and I would be better. I'd rather watch that than what we're watching right now. So, yeah, giving these guys run is never a bad thing. And there's some bad players on this team right now that deserve their spots to be taken. So, I don't mind it.
And Lewis, you pretty much summed up the sentiment of a lot of this Blue Jays fan base, is that if this team is going to suck, we might as well watch a team that's fun to watch, right? And that's one thing these Buffalo Boys have done. And honestly, Craig, I'll throw to you here because Spencer Horwitz has actually and I maybe am negative about kids who just get called up and their defensive play. It just seems to come a little later than the offense. But he's been all right at second base for a guy who hasn't played much second base.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that one because the one double play that he turned today, he had no time to make that turn at the Keystone, and he still managed to get that ball to first base. And when they needed a double play, there was no like ifs and buts about it. They did that run score, yes, but they had the bases loaded and nobody out at that time. So that was a key double play that he ended up turning, and it looked really good with the way he was able to just rifle that. It's got a sneaky arm, I guess, but at the end of the day, I'm hoping that I don't see as many games from Spencer Horwitz at second base. But at the end of the day, that's what gets his bat in this lineup right now. I don't care, and it's perfectly salvageable at this point. And then having 2 home runs today didn't exactly hurt that whole situation with his starting time. He's been one of the very few good bats over the last last week at least, but got to keep him in there. But I'm not thinking he's a liability like you would expect. It's kind of in that same ballpark as letting Vlad play third base again. I don't want to see it, but it's okay enough for a couple of games here and there.
The other guy that has been called up recently for his second stint. And Jeff, I'll throw to you here, because when we first watched Addison Barger get called up, we saw him stuck into left field for the first time ever in his professional baseball career. An odd move by John Schneider. He didn't ever look comfortable, and then he got sent back down, and he really struggled at the plate. But we're seeing a different Addison Barger this time, aren't we?
Well, I think this is the one thing I can't really understand between the AAA and our regulars. Like, these are guys that come up and they're working at bats. Addison Barter's been good with, he doesn't get as deep in the count as some of the other guys, but he is working a little better. He's seeing the ball a little better, I think, and he's even when he's making outs, you can call them like productive outs. And I'm noticing that with all of these guys coming from AAA, and I wonder why you get these guys who are working counts from AAA, and when you get to the majors, who've got guys who've been here for years, swinging at first pitches all the time and things like that. Like, I'm starting to think that the major league guys got to learn from guys like Barger and Horwitz. Honestly, the way Horwitz was last year, the way he was this year, I think he was being held back because of the way that we're kind of holding on to the guys that have already been there before. And we talk about a team that's supposed to be fun to play. Addison Barger is fun to watch play. Horwitz is fun to watch play. Clement is fun to watch play. It's not fun to watch George Springer play. Kevin Kiermaier, when he's in there, he's all right, but he's still not hitting anything. I want to be like Barger. Just look like you're there having fun and you're trying. I like the trying, and I like the fact they're doing it the right way. So why is there such a disparity between working the count in the AAA guys and not in the major league guys? That's a big, big thing for me that I don't really get.
Juan, going to the chat here, and I know you're answering the chat, but this is where Blue Jays fans are at, and this is from Michael Borland, where it just feels like the inevitable is this team is not a playoff team, not a playoff contender, and really in a downward trajectory. I mean, there's not a lot you can argue if you're looking at the other side. Obviously, there's a lot of baseball left, but Michael Borland says, question for Juan. Jays fans are done with this team. And that's the sentiment. And that's really what is frustrating and what we were talking about with at least make it a fun team to watch. Right? If it's going to suck, at least make it fun to watch. But he goes, fans are done with this team. In postseason, who should Canada cheer for? Cleveland with the Naylor boys or the M's? Convince us, Juan.
It's tough because, like, obviously living in the US, you see all the faults with this country, and I know the viewership here is mostly Canadian, so I'm feeling a little bit aggressive against the US and feeling comfortable to do so because I'm not at risk of a situation, that they so kindly appreciate down here. I love the Naylor boys, honestly. They're thick, Alejandro Kirk, Alec Manoah types, and they're Canadian, right? You want to see those guys succeed, and they're having really good seasons and easy to cheer for. And Cleveland is a team that is fun to watch. We just lost 2 out of 3 of them, and I swear to God, the entire AL Central is so fucking annoying this year between Cleveland, Minnesota, and Kansas City. I wish they would just piss off. Nobody expected any of them to be anything better than maybe 5 games over 500. But obviously you got to cheer for the Mariners. We're the closest. Okay. You can say Minnesota is close to Manitoba or Saskatchewan, but those aren't real places that anybody loves. Let's be honest here. I apologize to anybody who is watching from those provinces, but BC is the better province in Canada between BC, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. So go M's, man. Go M's. I mean, I think the Mariners rotation is going to be the difference as long as they can stay healthy. If you want to cheer for a winner, if you want to grasp a little piece of success this season as a Blue Jays fan, then come take over Seattle in July and cheer for the Mariners and elongated success throughout the season.
And that's what I love. Vancouver is going to do that. Even if this team is terrible, it's just such a fun party in Seattle. And we can just push all of that Blue Jays past season out of our mind and just concentrate on the fun of that series. And maybe we can win a series there in Seattle while we take over T-Mobile Park, which I know the Mariners hate. It's funny because I talked with Taylor Sacedo just recently of the Mariners, friend of the show, and he was like, I don't know, why don't you guys do the same thing in Detroit and stuff like that? And it's like, yeah, we do go to Detroit and stuff, but I think it's that the West Coast doesn't get close to Major League ball games very often. So when the Jays do go to Seattle, that's where everyone comes over. Poppin' wheelies in the chat here goes, did anyone think this team would be good out of spring training? And it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question because I didn't think they'd be good. I didn't think they'd be this bad. I really did think that they'd be one of those middling teams that fights for the third wild card spot, somewhere in that 84 to 87 to 89 wins. That's not a good team, but it's definitely better than what we're seeing. And basically, the bullpen just hasn't been good this year. We had hope that we would see Johnny's least favorite word here, positive regression from Johnny is very adamant. Why can't we just say improvement? Why are we using the word a double regression here? Positive regression. What the fuck is that? But I will throw to you here, Johnny. How badly do you think this front office overestimated improvement from some of these core guys in this team? And is it even on the front office?
Just about as bad as you can get. It is on the everything about this team that's failing to me is on the front office. Not just Shapiro and Atkins, but the entire management group, the coaching staff, like all the people who are telling in these guys' ears, telling them what to do. There's no reason why. Some of these vets are bound to fade a little bit, but there's no reason that George Springer should not be hitting sub 200. Like, he should not be a black hole. He's not that old. It's not like he's 39 and it's like, well, it was kind of his time. He was going to fade eventually. It's like he's still, in baseball terms, a pretty young dude. And some of the other things, like Bo falling off a cliff, it's like, how does that even happen? Like, we've seen Bo Bichette struggle in the past, but not so dramatically. I think it was 2 years ago he started the season, he was hitting around like 260. He had like 12 home runs. He wasn't doing anything too special. And then the September Bo hit changed the narrative completely. But up until then, there were discussions on forums about like, oh, what's Bo doing? So I think there's just something like really off about how this team is being run right now. I think it starts at the top. I think Atkins has completely misread the last 4 years of Blue Jays baseball. He has started a rebuild well and blown the middle and end game of it so dramatically. And to me, what I see from him is a complete lack of foresight and a lack of planning ahead. Like, just not able to think, oh, maybe the free agent class coming up in 2024 is going to suck. And maybe we should lock up some of our players so that we won't have to worry about going and getting free agents in 2024. Instead, he did some wheelie dealy stuff. Instead of locking up Teo, he sent him out for a reliever.
Thank you.
He sent out a viable catching option for years to come for defense first. Yeah, he's a decent hitter, but like that trade and sent Lourdes packing at the same time. These are trades we've all harped on so many times, but there's a reason why they're harped on. They were just didn't make sense. The moves he has been making have not been the moves that a GM who wants his team to be competitive and contend for a World Series makes. And I'm going to quote myself here because it's one of the smarter things I've said on social media lately. IKF being on the team sent us a signal about how it was going to go. IKF getting regular starts sent a wire. IKF being one of the better players was a direct phone call. IKF leading off is an emergency alert on all our phones. There's a tornado coming and it's about to hit your house.
And that's what's interesting too, is, and you really summed it up, is that the biggest success of the offseason is IKF. And although he's been great, he really didn't address any of the areas of need this team has. And I don't want to be a broken record here, but I mean, my God, this team has been without an actual legit cleanup hitter for 2 seasons now. What are we doing? You know, like, is this a serious team, or do they just refuse to acknowledge the fact that they miscalculated with what their approach was going to be and feel that there'll be some sort of median over a big enough sample size? Right? Like, it makes no sense what is going on here. We'll go to the chat really quickly. Chucharoo says, if Atkins is that bad, you have to take a look at his boss and call him out for allowing it. Time to Shapiro to go as well. And it's hard not to agree with that, although I will say I don't think that there's a world out there where that is the scenario. I do think that Rogers is going to put pressure on Mark Shapiro to start over with a new general manager. And the hope is that whoever they bring in, I hope it's an outside hire, and that is no slander towards James Click. I do believe in James Click. I just don't know if anything in this front office right now is worthy of being kept around. And so I say, bring in a new guy, let him bring in the guys he wants. If he wants to keep James Click, if he wants to keep some of these other staff members, that's on him. That's his choice. I'm all for it. But I would love to see this just gut right through. We'll move on to.
Can I quickly
go
take a
ahead, Juan,
counterpoint?
please. Step
I just
in,
have a
step in.
counterpoint, and I think
No, please.
yeah, I think the biggest issue was not having a backup plan if it wasn't going to be Otani, right? I think it was great that you guys were right there and right at the finish line to the point where we thought he was headed to Toronto, but then it was oh shit territory as soon as that was done. So great on them for being in the race, and I love the way that that front office actually handled the Otani situation because we thought nobody had a chance but the Dodgers. I'm pretty sure everybody here agrees with that. And for Toronto to be in the conversation and to the point where we thought you guys were going to lock it down was impressive, but they had to have something in place as a backup plan. And I think that's the detriment, right? Where you talk about not having a power hitter or a 4-hole hitter. And I understand Otani hits usually 1-2, but he's a 40 home run guy, so he does fit that mold. I'm just
that's where Johnny's point of it's not even about this this offseason. It's about not seeing the lack of free agents available ahead of time and not bolstering the team.
I actually think it wasn't going into the offseason. I think everybody knew that there's no hitting. There was no hitting this offseason at all. And I think what he was doing with the IKF signing, I understand what he was trying to do. Atkins was using Kiner Falefa as a holdover to see if any of the guys in AAA could take over third base because there were no third base and we were going to pay $20 million for Matt Chapman. That just wasn't going to happen. I think what he was doing was what's actually happening is seeing if the AAA guys can take the jobs because he obviously couldn't find a trade he liked, or maybe there wasn't one available that he was willing to pay the price for. So I really think that what he's done is what he's intended to do, is to see the AAA guys come and take the jobs. Unfortunately, I don't think he meant to see the regressions of Bo and Vladdy for the first month and George since the beginning of the season and Justin Turner in May and then now Danny Jansen for the last month or so and Alejandro Kirk for the first 2 months. Like, I don't think he anticipated 5 of these guys regressing again because they all regressed last year. So I think that's where he was coming from. But to the point, yeah, he definitely didn't have a backup plan for anything. Like, oh my God, if these guys don't happen. But here's the funny part is, as we're talking, the AAA guys did happen and they're actually doing well. It's the guys who are here. That's the problem. And the other thing is,
I think it was
great
great
that
they didn't. Yeah, I think it was great that they didn't sign Chapman to 20 mil plus a year on a 4 or 5 year contract. I think they got that right, to be honest.
Out of this year, IKF, I'd take him 10 times over $10 for dollar over Matt Chapman. So that's fine. I don't have a problem with the IKF signing or the Justin Turner, although I would have probably signed George Soler maybe instead of Turner being a 39-year-old DH. And again, he was brought in because he's a 1-year guy. It's almost like Atkins felt like this was going to be a bridge year. You know what I mean? Like, he thought, like, we got what we got. We can't get what we want because they're not there anymore. And why are they not there anymore? Here's the other thing is free agency is changing. Look at Seattle as a perfect example. They signed Julio Rodriguez for a 10-year deal. Atlanta signs all their kids to these long-term
Mhm.
deals to hold them in.
Yeah.
So you're not getting these really good 27-year-old, 28-year-old guys coming anymore. So I don't think he's ready for that. That's why we need another GM, because he's not ready for the fact that free agency's changed. And he's better at signing guys than he is at trading guys. That's going to be our biggest problem going forward. So James Click
Episode
as interim GM, that's my call.
I love it, Jeff. Episode 308 of Long Toss here. We have over 80 of you in the chat right now. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have not hit the like button, that would be appreciated. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, obviously that's great. Going to the chat, Dalton says, I just don't trust a hitting coach who washed out the minor leagues at 23 in single A ball because his hitting sucked. Vlad and Teo were going behind Guillermo's back in 2021 to get better advice from Jesse Barfield. There's a reason they went behind Guillermo's back. And some of you might remember that scenario that happened where Jesse Barfield actually got slapped on the wrist pretty heavily for that. I'll go to you, Lewis, here. Where are you at on the hitting approach throughout this organization? And how much longer do you think guys like Don Mattingly and Guillermo Martinez should be the voices in this room?
Yeah, when I look at the hitting, I just in general, they're not smart. It's plain and simple. They are not smart enough. Bo Bichette, like he's not a smart guy, but he knows baseball. He knows what hitting is, and that is his language. And the language that they are feeding him is wrong. He's not trying to do the things that create success. Hold fly balls. It's the closest wall. It's Vlad has a 70 grade hit tool and he's batting 270. Like it is clear that the coaching staff at the major league level is valuing all the wrong things, and they're cultivating an environment that does not value the correct approaches at the plate. Is why the guys that come up from AAA are the best hitters because they know what they have to do to succeed. Barger, Schneider's like this is a short guy who's through his career has had to do everything correctly in order to succeed and make to the majors. He's only in the majors because he pulls fly balls and barrels things in the air. It is like he did that himself, and there's nobody on the major league staff. And I'm sure in every organization there are people that know their stuff, but I don't think their voices are valued. And that's why I think from top to bottom, people need to go because Ross Atkins hired Don Mattingly. Like they share similar opinions on how things should be done on the hitting side, and that right there is just shows you that things are super wrong. Like the
And
fact that
just
Vlad is this bad, it like he's doing well.
yeah,
Like he should be on top of the same with Bo. Like it's unacceptable. It's malpractice in a lot of ways. I see.
to see how much they have regressed over the years is really tough to take. And to add on to what you're saying too, like Davis Schneider, I mean, say what you will, he has been a consistently above average hitter at a major league level since he has entered the league. Something not a lot of people saw coming. He has a 3 wins above replacement in 332 at bats. He has 81 hits in that time, 18 dingers, and a batting average of 244 with an OPS just under 900. Listen, that's legit. That is legit.
I think
Going
he's a
going
product
back,
of his own.
yeah.
Sorry. He's a
Jump in,
product of
Lewis,
his
jump
own
in.
success. He's a product of his own success, whereas everyone else is a product of the Jays just really, really messing up.
See the same
Really
thing about all the other
interesting.
AAA guys? Are they all do you think they're all the same thing? Got product of their own success, these guys coming up?
Their own success, like their own processes, the ways that they've had to succeed is like Bo, Vlad. These are talented guys. These are guys that were big leaguers the second they were drafted. Horwitz, Schneider, Barger, like these are guys that had to work and understand how you succeed on a baseball field, and then they go and play Major League Baseball, and it's like they're fitting right in. Whereas we see the failures with our other. Same with Springer. I think he's a guy that isn't quite valuing the correct approaches at the plate.
They had Matt Egg in their ear too for a lot of years. That probably helped a little bit. He seems to
Now
be
he's
one
up
of
with
the
a
few,
big
one of
team.
the few coaches who might know a thing or two.
But now he's up here. We've got 3 batting coaches, basically. We've got Don
Yeah.
Mattingly for approach, right? That's his whole offensive coordinator. 4 of them, So we got Guillermo
Edwin's up there
Martinez.
too right now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So with Matt Haig
Because
being
why
up
not?
here, well, if Matt Haig is up here, is he helping anybody else? Like that's the thing.
Well,
like he
you know
helped the
what? To
Upland
steal
guys,
a
so-
line, Jeff, from panelist, often panelist Sean Lacomber, right? Sometimes there's too many Chiefs and not enough Guardians, right? So,
Yeah.
I like it
Had to
is.
go
It
there,
is.
didn't
There's
you?
it's. I had to go there, but it's a heavy coaching staff. Like there's a lot of them there, and I don't know
Too
if that's a
soon.
problem. If that's a problem, but I mean they're not succeeding with it. We'll go back to the chat here. Go Blue Jays X has a very interesting thought where they're like, for being such a data heavy front office, to not expect regression on pitching is a crime. To not pad the offense and solely rely on offensive improvements is despicable. Johnny, you were saying this in the offseason all along, that to expect the pitching staff to do what they did last year was almost lunacy, right?
Yeah, that there was no way they were going to repeat last year. And that goes for the starting pitching and the relief pitching, especially the relief pitching. That bullpen was amazing last year. And not only were they amazing on both ends, on the starting and the relieving, they got virtually injury free. They had the Alek Manoah collapse. That was sort of an injury, sort of a mental thing. But that was pretty much it. Like, you got Romano almost the whole season, pitching lights out. You got, when they got Cabrera, he was great, didn't get injured. Hicks came in, didn't get injured, was awesome. Like, pitcher after pitcher had, so many of them had career years. And to think like, oh yeah, they're going to go out and do that again next year, no problem. And then we can just rely on our offense to pick up. It's the delusion that I've mentioned before that I feel like the front office has, that they think they're better than the sum of their parts. And if you look at it on paper, it's like, no, they could be a very good team. You can look at who they've got on the page, and that's why I made the mention of IKF, not because him in a nutshell was a poor deal to be made. It was that if you have him on your team, it's a sign of a problem. He shouldn't be getting starts on your team. Like, he's having a great season right now, his best season ever. But having him be your starting anybody, he is a bench player on a great team. So you already know you're not a great team if he's your starting anything. And I feel like that is, they just misread it. The FO misread it, and the talk about, things returning to their norms as far as the batters were concerned, as well, that's a lot of wishful thinking, and you're conveniently ignoring all the pitchers returning to norms. So what's going to happen when that happens? Well, we're finding out. It ain't.
I think these guys have been
is-
playing MLB The Show more than they actually been playing baseball, but that's besides the point.
So this is Long Toss episode 308. We have 100 folks right now following along. Really appreciate all of you following along in YouTube. Feel free to drop your comments. We'll get to as many of viewers as we can. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Orelvis Martinez. This is a tough one for Blue Jays fans to swallow, because the truth is the season's been such a shit show already. It just feels like this is really a gut punch when we're already down, right? Enough, baseball gods. Stop kicking us. We've had it. We get it. Juan, from an outside perspective, I know whenever I hear of someone else's, a player or a prospect being found guilty of having doped, right? PED suspension. It always reminds me, oh shit. Right. Steroids are still out there probably. It reminds you of one of the darker marks on the game, and it's always tough to take. And then on top of it, you got to deal with the fact that you have a cheater on your team. What was your First reaction when you found out that Orelvis Martinez was being suspended for 80 games, the Toronto Blue Jays number 2 prospect and number 59, according to Baseball America, out of the top 100. When you found out, first thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I woke up this morning to your screenshot because you're on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So I was like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, man. I picked this kid up in fantasy hoping that he was going to have some power bot for me. And he played in one fucking game before he was lost for the season, you know? Uh, it's frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating. I don't buy the statement at all. For one, you're 22 years old and you're going for fertility treatment. I'm sorry, like that feels like a stretch and it feels like a cop out. You know, if I'm your teammate, I can appreciate you doing everything to get better and to win, but going about it this way is wrong. These rules are set in place for a reason. And with that being said, I mean, either nobody can do it or everybody can do it. And I think it would be absolutely hilarious and awesome to watch a pro steroid MLB and see what a guy like, you know, Giancarlo Stanton or an Aaron Judge can do on steroids. But I'm not buying the excuse, and I think that drops him out of top 100 prospect territory. I think it puts a major mark on him. And I honestly think that you got to go the Osuna route and get rid of him, man. This is a guy that you guys have been relying on a long time to be a major contributor with Vlad and Bo. And if he's going and doing stupid shit like that, he's not a guy that I want around the team. You know, we can speculate as to how they went about bringing him up and not playing him so that the suspension is done this season and not next season. It seems very fishy to me, but I know these things happen quick. So it's tough to say, but I hate it for the entire Blue Jays organization that was excited about this kid. I hate it for his family and his friends that got to look at him with that black mark as well. You know, hopefully he goes the route that Fernando Tatis Jr. did, and he made it back and is still seen in a pretty positive light, in my opinion, in San Diego. But you know, for every Fernando Tatis, there's a
Chris
Caballero.
Colabello.
No, Caballero. That was exactly.
Use an
That was-
example of a
Giambi
Blue
is
Jay.
my go-to.
Yeah, that was
Like-
the kid I was trying to think of. So
Like, listen, this
Good.
is a scandal that has been going on for 30 years. Okay. So when you're I just don't buy the ignorance plea. I don't buy the I wanted to keep it secret.
Totally.
I didn't want to take it to MLBPA. I didn't want to let the team know. I mean, this is your livelihood, which again, I think we've all seen the difference between a guy who's, let's say, a 4A guy, right? Let's use Chris Colabello as an example, whether you believe Chris or not, whether he was guilty or not of truly doping. He was a borderline superstar with the Blue Jays. Superstar is too strong, but he was a borderline star with the Blue Jays.
All-star.
And then all of a sudden, just back to AAA, couldn't find it again. So, Craig, I'll go to you here. What is your thoughts on Orelvis Martinez, on doping in general, and the ignorance plea, this wasn't a medicine and my doctor said it was fine, and so on and so forth? Do you buy it?
I gotta press that first once because I gotta mention to Juan that I also went with my pick to click this week on the Jaybird Watching podcast with Orelvis Martinez. So it hurt. It's in writing, and I'm definitely not winning when he had a whole one hit over the last week. So, and I would also love to see Super Banana Ball, like it'd be a version of the Savannah Bananas that's all juiced up. And see where that
Yes.
goes. I think that would be the funnier thing in baseball. But as far as it goes, I just think that they've seen too many of the, people come out and say the exact same thing. It wasn't my fault. It was this. It's the pass the buck mentality. He should have owned up for it and walked away with it. And there's been plenty of players, and I think Fernando Tatis handled that better in that fashion that it worked out well for him, right? It's the own up for your mistake, move on, and just get it over with, right? Nobody will be talking about it still. And the fact that it's coming up on my freaking news board back here behind me with Orelvis Martinez, this shows how big the story actually got, because it never shows Blue Jays anything on that board for this season.
Yeah.
So, but to that point, I was very excited to see Orelvis Martinez. I've seen what he's been doing in Buffalo all year. Seeing I live here in Rochester, New York. I was looking very forward to seeing the rest of the Bisons are going to be here for the 4th of July and Canada Day and everything over the next week here too. So I was looking very forward to seeing what he could do in the next version of this Buffalo Boys promotion stuff. And now you're just not going to get that. The only thing that's the blessing for the Blue Jays in this whole thing is that the 80-game suspension can be fully served this year with what's left on the clock, with somehow 85 games more of torture for all of us in this podcast today. But I can't say enough things as far as what it does to his trade value, what it does to this team. They were expecting him to jump in, even though they didn't have the best way to really bring Orelvis Martinez into this lineup, because there's how many middle infielders on this team now. So if you talk about what this is going to do internally for the Blue Jays for the short term, this is going to mean more time for Horowitz, more time for Barger, and so on. So I guess there's only so many things I can have from the reaction ballpark, but I would have loved to see what Martinez could have done in a major league uniform this year. But I don't think they can trade him because they're not going to get shit for him.
No, and I think it completely changes the perspective of this player. You don't even know who this player is at this point. You don't know how long he's been
correct.
Or, like, right? You can't expect him to come back and be that guy. You have no idea who this guy is as a player. He's not the prospect that you signed internationally. You know, he's 6 years along, most likely. I assume you guys signed him at 16. He's 22 now. You have no idea, and now you can't bank on him being the replacement to Bo when he leaves via trade or free agency. You know, that completely ruins that plan of whatever you foresaw this prospect being. So that fucking sucks for the organization, and you let your entire franchise down doing that shit.
Yeah,
And
to your point,
the
Juan,
big
it
hit
just flips
here.
the whole thing around.
That's the big hit
So,
here too, and I'll throw to you here, Jeff. But it sure is frustrating to watch these assets within this Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse that we're on the verge of some big decisions being made for the future moving forward, and it seems like the value keeps eroding on these assets, right? Bo's having maybe the worst season of his entire career right now. Orelvis Martinez, who probably had quite a bit of value on the open market, is now a big question mark. You got Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who just doesn't have power anymore for whatever reason. I guess my question to you is how can so many of these dominoes fall the way they've fallen? And is this all on because, and I'm going to address the chat, because the chat right now is pretty much, they're arguing between whether this is just Atkins' fault or Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins' fault. Where are you at on how much of this should be put on Atkins' plate? Because at this point, it's really hard to convince anyone that a new voice isn't fucking necessary right now.
No, it's necessary. I'm of the minority in this, where I don't think this Orelvis thing is going to be that detrimental to his career. I don't. I think
I hope you're right, man.
I do think he made a personal mistake that he didn't go to his coaches and say, "Is this, I'm taking this. What's in it?" I don't think there was anything. Honestly, I don't think it was like a ha 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 ha. I'm going to try and get past them. I just think he just did something stupid and didn't check with the coaching staff and go like, "I'm trying to get pregnant. I'm using this."
At
Should I use
22?
this? Well, you never know, man. Like, I have friends who've done that before at like 23, 24. You never know from person to person, right? We don't know what his medical history is. So I'm not going to say
You're right. We
that.
can speculate. That is
It's
speculation.
also,
You're right.
exactly. I'm not going to go with the speculation. But when it comes to the front office stuff, Shapiro was brought here for a reason, and we did his reasons. We did the ballpark renos, and we did the spring training facilities. That's why Shapiro was brought here, was to take the Jays from their still living in the 90s style of doing things to bringing it into the forefront, which is, again, why Shohei Ohtani really thought about coming here, because he saw all these changes. Like, I know he was all big on our spring training facility and stuff. I'm willing to give Shapiro a chance without Atkins, because there's never been a Shapiro without Atkins. When they were in Cleveland, they were together, and now here they're together. I want to see how he does with somebody who's not Atkins and see what happens with the team, because then you'll kind of know whether it's a Shapiro thing or not. And I know he's the one that has to say yes to everything, but he also has the ear of Ed Rogers. All right. And I think people don't really realize how big that is because Rogers, until Ed came around, was just Rogers. Ed wants it to be Ed Rogers is Rogers. So Shapiro is very good at playing to his ego, hence us having the biggest payroll we've ever had. What happened with that payroll? Atkins went ass over tea kettle to make sure we had a lot of money in pitching, but he did nothing with the batting at all. He really didn't. Like signing George Springer, even then it was a little suspect because he was already 31 years old and an injury prone kind of guy. And forgive my lighting disappearing if you can still hear me. But basically, it's just you've really got to listen to what you're doing. Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're back. I
Because
don't know
also
what's
all
going
my
on with
stuff
your
just kind of
sound.
went on me. So I'm just going to finish by saying give Shapiro another shot with somebody else. And now I'm going to fix my crap because I don't know what the hell just happened, but technology sucks. Okay,
Absolutely. Listen, Jeff, we're going to move on to the next topic here is what we're going to do, folks. And that is that Dalton Varsho left the game yesterday with apparent injury. It has been said he's dealing with some tightness in his back. He's day to day. We'll see how he progresses. He might wind up on the IL. I know a lot of us, when Stuart Baroa last night was called up, assumed that was because there was an IL stint coming for Varsho, which was a real bummer. And then, of course, it turned out that this was to replace Orelvis. But what I will say is that Dalton Varsho, despite the fact that he had a horrible first season with this Toronto Blue Jays and really didn't hit the expectations everyone was hoping for, he's been incredible for this team this year, and he has been the most powerful bat in the outfield, which, yes, is a problem on its own, and a big problem. So just if he leaves, that means your outfield, I mean, obviously, hopefully Davis Schneider's getting a bunch of time in left field, but your outfield is Stuart Baroa, George Springer, and Kevin Kiermaier, which there's not a bat to be had there. So to that point, these are the Toronto Blue Jays home run leaders, okay? Varsho has 11. Davis Schneider has 10. That's 21. That's the top two. Philadelphia home run leaders. Harper has 18. Schwarber has 18. A total of 36. The Cleveland Guardians that they just played, Naylor has 19. Ramirez has 19. That's a total of 38. So, yeah, pretty big power outage. And watching Dalton Varsho go on the shelf, Lewis, we'll go to you. What does this team do? I mean, at this point, you almost got to just deal with the fact the season's over and count down the days till Atkins is gone. Like, with Varsho, the fact he's even leading this team in home runs is insane. And now the leader of home runs in the outfield is George Springer.
Yeah, the way I look at it is there's so many guys on this team that are brilliant complementary pieces to great teams. Like Varsho is the perfect nine hitter. Kiermaier, like even last year, the perfect nine hitter. Horwitz, guys like that, Schneider, like we have so many nice players, yet they're the center of the team. Like Varsho's defense is incredible, but his injury in the grand scheme of things shouldn't really affect us that much. The fact that it does just shows that this team, it's no longer holes, it's just the whole thing is constructed poorly, and the roster construction is obviously another conversation about like just how terrible it is. But yeah, man, Varsho, all we really wanted from Varsho is for him to be a league average hitter, and he's been doing that. But the fact that that's been one of the better performances on the team all year is another failure, another drastic failure by the team.
Can I step in here and take, because I'm confused. This is a dude with 11 home runs. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
11. He's hitting 207. How the fuck is he league average? Like, he's not good. His outfield defense does not offset hitting 207.
I think he's this year league.
That's all
That's
horrible.
my problem.
Hitting's down all the way around, right?
Okay, so the league average OPS this year for 2024 is 699. And Dalton Varsho is above that. And so weighted runs created plus, he's also a plus player. So, I mean, yes, you're right. He's below average on batting average, which this year I think is like 230 or something disgusting like that.
Yeah.
Awful.
So
Far
I'm
from
just
Tony
saying
Gwynn.
that when you look at run producers on this team, which doesn't say much because this team doesn't produce runs, but the run producers on this team, Dalton Varsho's near the top, man.
Like, I
He
hate
is
to
the
say
top.
this, but he's like comparable to Cal Raleigh, which as a catcher is great. As an outfielder, it's not acceptable.
Well, he is the
Well, he
number one
can
defensive
catch.
outfielder that there is, right?
Like,
Dalton
you
Varsho
say,
is
yeah,
leading
there
the
you
offense
go.
in WAR.
Put him behind the dish all of a sudden, it's not so bad anymore.
Dalton Varsho leads the
Um,
offense in WAR. Like he's the most valuable hitter on the team.
And I
I was
Player,
think
actually
that
just looking that up,
hit
and
an
it
offensive
said
piece.
IKF is the.
that
I was just
speaks
looking that up.
volumes to
It's
why the
2.8
Mariners
for
season
IKF.
is in the toilet before the All-Star game, for sure.
This is a great question from Andrew McLeod here, and I'm gonna throw to you, Johnny, to answer this one. By September, do you think the Jays will field a team whose combined salary will not exceed Springer's?
Wow.
Great.
I
Mm.
I doubt it. But
Was he at 26?
if Atkins gets fired, like he should be, and they have a new guy in, and that new guy is savvy and manages to get rid of Springer's contract, then it is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There
you're
is-
trying to retrade Vernon Wells again, is what I hear you
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
Can
It's
we-
2001.
can we
Exactly.
Somehow Alex Rios our way
Hey,
out
he's
of
not
this.
here, man.
Exactly.
Yes.
The
yes.
Angels will take that call every time, I promise you.
Yeah, think
Oh,
how
boy,
much
they
salary
might.
would they have to eat? How much salary would they have to
Oh.
eat to get him traded? Seriously, it would
That's
they'd have to
the
eat like
only-
75% of it.
That's
2
the
more
only
years
front
at
office more
24.
incompetent than ours. So
Yeah, 2 more years at $24 million.
Get Artie Moreno on speed dial. Let's go.
Okay, going back to the chat, Chucharu says Varsho is arguably the best outfielder defender in baseball. This is true, just according to defensive runs saved and OOA, or OAA, outs above average. That 100% counters the 200 average, in my opinion. He just needs to hit in the 9th hole, which, yeah, if you've got a 9-hole hitter who's the best outfielder in baseball and you're going to hit 25 home runs in a year and you're hitting 205, that's great. You just can't be the best hitter on the team.
Thank you. That's all I'm saying. You can't be the top guy. Absolutely. That's fine. There's a place for you on the roster. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a roster spot. I'm just saying that can't be your best hitter. You're
Well, he
fine.
wasn't supposed to be. He never was.
True.
Like
Totally,
that.
totally true.
Yeah, that goes back to the whole thing. Our main guys are regressing. That's what it goes down. Like if we were hitting the way we were, Dalton would be the 5th best hitter on the team, and that's
Yeah.
kind of where he should be, right? But he's not. And if Guerrero keeps going and he hit another home run today, I think Guerrero is. I think you're going to see a big second half from him. I really do. I just see it coming from him. Bo, I think, looks lost. And this again, we were talking about payroll for next year. I don't see Bo staying past this year. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he wants to be here. I really don't. Everybody keeps going, we got to bring back his dad, bring back Dante. Maybe he wants to go somewhere where Dante can be with them more than like once a month kind of thing. I just don't see him being here. And what we should do at the trade deadline at this point is you trade your dead weight, trade Kiermaier, bring the kids up. Let Stuart Baroa play more, and maybe trade Justin Turner. Let Horowitz go between first base and DH kind of thing. I think that's where we're at. We should go on with a full on youthish kind of movement till the offseason, because
I mean, the truth is though, Jeff, and I don't disagree with you. The problem is these guys have no value right now, so you're going to need to Kevin Biggio it basically.
That's fine. We don't need them. It's just salary off the payroll, which makes sure we don't go into double luxury tax area, right? Like Kiermaier's $10 million. If we want to trade Akiev, he's $7.5 million. If Kikuchi gets traded, he's $13 million off. You got about $30 to $35 million worth of payroll that you can trade right now and not really get anything for it, but gives you something going into the offseason to give whatever new GM comes in.
Yeah, but I think like IKF and Kiermaier with their defense, they have some value there as bench role players, right? Like
exactly.
IKF can play all over the infield and produce for a playoff team, and Kiermaier can be that 4th outfielder defensively who comes in the 7th
and
inning.
he can run still.
Yeah, he can run, right? So those guys have some value there for sure. Obviously, Kikuchi has had a good season, so I do think those names have to be moved. There's no, hey, you have to move those names, even if you're getting back, like a
Bag of
top
balls.
15 prospect out of somebody's farm system that maybe has a chance to be packaged in a larger deal or
just a
be
lottery
like a
ticket of
David
some
Schneider
sort.
type thing.
Yeah.
Then that's okay, but those guys got to get moved for sure.
Yeah.
It's not as
I
simple
got a
as
good
starting pitching, unfortunately, because like there's nobody to replace. You send Kikuchi out, there's nobody to replace him, unless you're getting like a
Doesn't matter at this
young,
point.
you hope for it starting pitcher back.
Well, I think that's where you see
You
Adam
take care of that
Macko.
in the offseason.
Well,
You
you
take
can-
care of that in the
Okay.
offseason and just get the best return.
Well, for the season, bring up
Yeah.
Adam Macko. He's ready. Just bring up a guy who can fill in the spot.
Yeah.
Somebody who's
Yep.
played
Yeah,
well this
just
season.
go
and
eat
deserves
one
it.
of those warm
Just go
body
eat it.
pitchers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we
All
can
right.
have 17 bullpen days.
Okay, hold on here. We're gonna go back
I
to
have a good conspiracy
chat
theory
real
for you.
quick here. Let's reel it in, guys. Hold on here. All right, so we're gonna go back to chat. Adam Hustler says Springer would have to be the David Price of trade, a la Betts and Price to the Dodgers, which is true. There would need to be a. Can we package a Orelvis Martinez with Springer for someone to take?
Too early.
All right. So this is episode 308 of Long Toss. A big thank you to everyone in the chat right now here. We are live on YouTube, trying to get to as many as your comments and questions as possible, obviously. Hit that like button. Means the world. It helps us out. And if you are not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. We currently have, let's see what the total is, 116 of you watching. We've hit as many as 125 so far. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. We are an hour into the show now. So we will go to our next topic, which is, are the Jays, are jobs on the line here? We've talked about this a little bit, but Shapiro was actually in Cleveland. And I mean, yes, obviously, that is where Mark Shapiro came from, was the Cleveland Guardians organization. And he could have just been seeing some old pals, some buddies. But normally, whenever a GM is actually on the road with the team, we see some firings happen. I know that's what happened when the Blue Jays wound up letting go of Charlie Montoyo when he was in Seattle there after that series. So I guess we'll go around the panel and kind of do an over-under. A yes or no. Do you think somebody in this Jays coaching staff is going to be fired? I don't think it's going to be John Schneider, but is there maybe a lamb to be led out to slaughter? Craig, let's start with you, my friend. What do you think? Is there a firing we're going to hear of later tonight once we release this? Probably it'll come out while we're in the middle of it. Let us know in chat if it does. Yeah.
So, but I think there's got to be some smoke to that fire. We were talking about this, actually, funny enough. I think I was on the show last time, Scott, about a month ago, and we were talking about this team did not find a way to improve. Somebody had to go. It wasn't a question. We were hoping that at that time, there was like, you know what, there's still a glimmer of hope. The glimmer is dead. It's been left out in the field, rotting corpse, got cement shoes, whatever mafia term you want to insert into this equation. So the problem is, I think if this team is even going to have a chance of even improving on the field, even with what the product is currently, somebody's got to go. Clearly, the mantra that this team has been pushing from the management level is not working. And you can't just go turn around firing the players because they're going to have to go on a fire sale and trade people or whatever they're going to have to do here at the end of the season. I didn't want it to be John Schneider, but I think at this point, he's probably going to be the one that's trotted out, especially from last postseason visits and all the other good stuff that's happened over the last calendar year. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't stop there, there's already a bigger problem. I would think that this has to include all the above people that we've mentioned in this conversation, including, probably in my personal opinion, a lot of people, unfortunately, that work in some of these people that have been feeding information to this management team, because the whole mantra is broke at this point. But yes, I will be shocked if there's not at least a few firings, not just one, a few over the next week.
Funniest scenario, Craig, in my opinion, is if John Schneider gets fired and they promote Don Mattingly to manager, and we can just watch the fan base just be like, all right, let's get our pitchforks. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's burn this motherfucker to the ground. You're going to
Yeah.
Lewis, do you think there's
We're
any
gonna get some kid
way?
from the analytics department instead.
Do you think there's any way, Lewis, that this front office can be so tone deaf and blind to what the fans are watching that you could see a scenario where a John Schneider is fired and an interim like Don Mattingly is put in place?
It's I'm not sure if you guys seen the meme, but it's like people who say they don't like Subway, but it's like, hey man, you made the sandwich. Like Ross Atkins, you made the sandwich, man. You can't complain about it. You firing people is
Part of
it's
the
the
job.
mess that you made. Like I
Yeah.
want people to be fired. I want people to be fired, but I don't want Ross Atkins to fire them. I want someone new to come in with their vision, their path, and then make those firings. Because like it's embarrassing at this point. Like him firing the people that he's hired, it's like this will be the second go of this. It's just quit, dude. Just quit.
Just quit.
So there's your hashtag.
Oh man, that is
Just
such a
quit.
great
Sounds like a show
analogy,
title.
Lewis. I love that
Yeah,
analogy, man.
man.
The you
You made
made
the
the
sandwich.
sandwich, dude. You totally made this sandwich, and it's a shit sandwich. All right. I think we're at the point where we can move on to a Mariners minute here and just talk the Seattle Mariners for a quick fiver before we get into some All-Star game talk here and get to everyone's topic. So we'll start with you, Juan. Always appreciate an update on what's going on in the Seattle Mariners universe. They obviously, despite playing not the greatest this week, in fact, they lost the series to the Marlins, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
they
mean
did.
we're coming off a high last week where we took 3 or 4 from the White Sox like you're supposed to, and then went into the weekend sweeping the rival Rangers. So we were riding high, and Cleveland put us back in our place, and then the Miami Marlins made us feel shit about ourselves, going 2-4 this week. Luckily, we've built a big enough lead on the Rangers and Astros to have them all again and have a little bit of a dud and not be too worried. Obviously, we're relying on our pitching. It's going to come down to that, but the team still looks good, and I got to give a shout out to Ryan Bliss, man. Ryan Bliss is a rookie that came over in the Paul Sewell trade last year, and at one point between yesterday, Friday, and today, he got on base 9 out of 11 at bats. And is potentially going to shore up our second base problem that we've been having ever since I think Brett Boone in 2001. So shout out to Ryan Bliss. This is a kid that is the mold of a Jose Altuve. I think he's like 5'6". He can run, and he's got a little pop to him like Altuve is too. Excited to see where his career leads. Polanco was a good trade. It might not work out. He has been injured. He hasn't hit when he was healthy. So we're excited to see what this next week brings, but forward thinking 2 weeks from now, Blue Jay series, all eyes are on that one for me right now. And hoping that things remain tumultuous for you guys that weekend so we can get, a sweep on the board and build that lead in the AL West for sure.
Johnny, I think personally that this Seattle Mariners team might have the best pitching staff in all of baseball. And if they can learn how to score some runs, might literally be an actual World Series contender. They're sort of running away with the division right now. When you look at this pitching staff, do you see long run in the playoffs? Is this a team that has the horses to do that?
They're so much like the Jays were last year. It's hard to say that because we all know how that went. But you never know. I mean, to me, the Mariners their fate is dependent on how their bats do, actually. Their pitching's going to be great. They're going to keep you in games, but it's like, does Cal Raleigh have a heroic 8th-inning home run in him that day? That's what's going to make the difference. So if their bats can just get enough done, they could go on a nice little run in the playoffs. I mean, any team can do it. As far as the best pitching staff in baseball, I think there's a very good argument for that, especially the starting pitching. With the starting pitching, the only one that comes close to me right now is the Pirates, just because of the crazy studs they've got running out. that's just their starters, not the Pirates bullpen.
Yeah.
But their starters are like every single one of those guys. We got to see them when the Jays played them. Well, we actually didn't get to see two of their best ones when the Jays played them, but like every guy they send out there is quality, and the Mariners is kind of the same deal. So yeah, I think they could make a nice little
And
run
Johnny,
in the playoffs.
what a great setup for a transition into a talk about Paul Skeens and if he should be in the All-Star game. But first, Andrew McLeod has a question for you, Juan. He says, Juan, what is Dipoto searching for at the deadline? Realistic thoughts. And of course, I'm bringing this up because you can't stop texting me about wanting Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. I was really high on Yimi Garcia. Obviously, he went down and got hurt, so that's no longer on the table. But Nate Pearson is a great bullpen reclamation project for the Mariners. Not to say that the guys that came over from the Blue Jays were necessarily reclamation projects. I don't want to put that on Thornton or Saucedo, but they're dudes that have thrived since coming over for sure. These are
Man,
guys
they've been good for you guys.
They've been real good, man. They sub-3 ERA guys, and they're doing great. But I mean, the crown jewel is
Juan's ready for the fire sale, is all I heard.
exactly it, man. There's a lot of people that we could go after. I mean, fuck, even IKF as an infielder, to supplant a couple of guys as possible too. But Vlad is the crown jewel, man, and I think we have the pieces that could potentially get it done. And I think Orelvis' situation plays a big part because a lot of our prospect depth and a lot of our, top 100 prospects are shortstops. There are guys there that can, it is probably a 2-for-1 deal where Vladdy plus, Nate Pearson. And then we trade you a guy like Cole Young, who is, a top 25 prospect in the MLB right now as your future shortstop because Bo is gone for sure. But then we'll throw in Tyler Locklear as well, second-round draft pick from 2023, who's been mashing in AAA and has shown some positives in the MLB this season already after 1 year of minor league play. So, if we bring in Vladdy, we'll give you guys your first baseman replacement that is under team control for 2025 plus another 5 years, plus give you a young shortstop that can offset losing Bo. The organizations line up really, really well right now in terms of need. So I would love to see Vladdy in a reclamation project and Nate Pearson for one of our middle infielders that is a top 100 prospect, and Tyler Locklear, who is a fringe top 100 prospect, but would offset the loss of Vladdy. If you guys wanted Ty France instead of our prospect, by all means, that would be my preference. But I think it would be Locklear and young top prospect up the middle to get that job done. I'd love to see Vladdy in a Mariners uniform for sure.
Scott, I think I figured it all out. I just figured it out why it's so much different this year. I know what it is. It's the Trent Thornton factor.
Nice.
It's the Trent Thornton factor.
Because
Should have never let him go.
When
It's
Trent
so
Thornton was
good
with
for
us, we were
America.
doing so well. But now that Trent Thornton's on Seattle, they're doing really well, and we're not.
He's the
Trent,
horseshoe.
There's the catalyst.
So this is Long Toss, episode 308. Our panelists, Juan Forno of the Walk-Off Mariners. If you are enjoying the Seattle Mariners talk, follow along on YouTube, and they are now on Twitter at Walk-Off Mariners. We've got from 4040 Man, Jeff. We've got Lewis Foster joining us again. He was a regular with us last couple years, but this is his first time of the season. Back from Jaybird Watching Podcast, we've got Craig and, of course, Johnny, our producer, stepping up to be a panelist. It's been an excellent show so far. We are very thankful to all of you watching along on YouTube. Well over 100 people have been following along pretty much all show long. Please hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. And we are now going to talk the All-Star Game and some Paul Skeens, because this is a dude who is just incredibly fun to watch. 21 years old, has a freaking cannon for an arm. I know I just saw in his 98th pitch today, he closed things up with a 102-mile-an-hour fastball. And here's the thing. I'm not alone in wanting to see Paul Skeens. Most of Major League Baseball fandom wants to see Paul Skeens, but He was called up only recently. He doesn't really have the games to be in the All-Star break. Lewis, do you say fuck it? Should they just give the fans what they want? I mean, his numbers are incredible. He's pretty much a borderline all-star anyways.
Yeah, people gotta stop treating the All-Star game like some sort of reward, like an MVP or Silver Slugger. It's just one game, and if you're not willing to put are there really like 5 or 6 pitchers you take over Paul Skeens? Like if he isn't pitching in that game, then what is the All-Star game for? Is it not for the collection of the best, youngest, most important people in the game right now? I think it's almost stupid. It would be stupid if he didn't go. I think he's got to make it. He's too good not to.
He's too good not to. I will address some of the comments in the comments section here. And just it's love for baseball, Jen. She's our regular. She's on every single Sunday. If you're wondering, where is Jen? Why is she not here? She is a high school teacher, and it is big time marking time for her. She just did not have the time. She just did not have the time to join us. So she will be back next Sunday. Do not worry. This isn't the last you've seen of Jen, but we've got a great panel with us. Curious on your thoughts. Jeff, we'll go to you, buddy. Where are you at on All-Star games in general? Who should be in? I know a lot of people make a big deal. A lot of guys like Davis Schneider getting votes. Might not be your typical all-star, but also someone from the Blue Jays has to go. Do you think people put too much stock on all-star games? And what do you want to see for the players selected?
Honestly, I'm kind of in the point at the right now is I find it so strange that we pick all-stars at the half point of the season. Because you've seen guys who didn't hit the All-Star game and they fell flat on their face in the second half. So you're going for an All-Star who'd had a great 80 games of the season. So I don't think you can go by just what they've done this season. Like Lewis said, it's just a fan game. The fans want to see who the fans want to see. And if the fans want to see Skeens, the fans should see Skeens. Because this shouldn't be a reward for the year. This should be it's a popularity contest. I mean, honestly, we get to vote 5 times a day for a month. Like that doesn't skew towards like he's the best. It skews towards ballot stuffing. And it always has. That's why you've seen a lot of Jays make the team in the past, because you got 33 million people stuffing ballots in Canada to do it. So you know what? Let Skeens play. Why not?
Yeah.
Like he's one of the best you'll see. And honestly, with that kind of velocity, will he last for 10, 15 years? Let's see him now while he can throw it, because I don't think he's going to be throwing 102 miles an hour at 30. He might blow his arm up before then. You never. Let's see him while he can do it. Let's see these guys play while they can play.
Yeah.
Now,
to your point, not everybody's Nolan Ryan.
I think a great comparison too is how Caitlin Clark was left off Team US for the Olympics. It's like, why? This is the people that the fans want to see. Paul Skeens is the player fans want to see. Could you imagine Paul Skeens in a 1-inning relief performance in the All-Star game? He's going to put himself on the map and then continue to be marketed by the MLB as this phenom. Right? Go put him on this world stage that Pittsburgh is not going to get on anytime soon, and show them why it's good to watch Pittsburgh baseball. This is a dude that is dating one of the most famous people on TikTok. He's a first-round pick. He's a 21-year-old. And everybody is, Pittsburgh, like the fans show up in fucking mustaches every game he pitches, right? Like from a pure business standpoint, it would be fucking stupid not to have Caitlin Clark in the Olympics, but it would be just as stupid not to have Skeens in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Going to chat here. Oh, sorry, Craig. Go ahead, buddy.
To your point, Juan, MLB's always been horrible about marketing their players.
Yeah.
Unlike all the other sports. So I promise you they're going to shoot themselves in the foot here, regardless. It's just how it is.
Mike Trout is the perfect example, man.
Or even Ronald Acuna. How long did he even get him on the cover of like Topps baseball cards, for Christ's sake? This year was the first year.
Or the fact that with Vladdy on this year after a poor last year, that did made no sense to me at all. Like Acuna Jr. couldn't make the cover of the show this year for doing a 40-70. Exactly.
Yeah, but no, they put Jazz Chisholm on last year instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going to chat here real quick on the All-Star game. Scott Carter says, I don't care who is in the All-Star game. I really don't care if they even have an All-Star game. Only the Hall of Fame means less to me, which is a very funny comment, by the way, Scott Carter. Another comment on the All-Star game. Michael Borland says, to be honest, the All-Star game is the part of the year I watch no baseball at all. RC Cyber Warrior says voting should be restricted to 1 vote per person. That would make ballot stuffing a little harder to do. That is for sure.
There you go.
Dolchmerus says, I miss voting for all-star players with a punch card.
That was the most fun when I was a kid, going to the game and you get them passing it down the row. Oh yeah.
That's awesome. It's the only time you could vote back then.
Exactly.
So
Had to
here's a
bring a
note
pen.
on Skeens. Skeens, there are 6 pitchers in all of MLB since Skeens joined MLB that have been better than him.
Right there.
3 of them are in the
Just say
National
so.
League.
Do you guys think that Pittsburgh screwed Skeens by holding him in AAA for as long as they did? Because he had no business being in AAA. It wasn't even time
That's a
served
service time
manipulation.
thing. Totally a
at this
service
point,
time
like-
thing. That's going to be eliminated the next collective bargaining, because that's been a thorn in people's sides. Like Vladdy was the same way. All these guys are like that, right?
Well, that
It's-
was the speculation, but then he had
Yeah.
like 4 starts after the point where they had already gained that extra year.
Yeah.
Like they held
Yeah.
him for 4 starts, which is insane.
Well, to that point, it was a draft pick last year, right? So there was some balancing act, right?
Yeah.
It's not all perfect, and not for every Bryce Harper, Paul Skeens you get a bunch of guys that have to stay in the minor leagues for 4 years. Look at the guys we're talking about at the beginning of this show. This is how it is, right?
Yep.
Okay, we are now at the portion of the show where we're going to go around the horn here. Everyone has brought a topic or a comment that they want to talk about, and we'll keep an eye on the chat as well and see what you folks think about these topics. Now, I am going to say to my panelists here, I need a pee break. So I'm going to throw to one of you to do your topic, and if you can just act like this show still can roll without me, that would be lovely. Let's start with you, Lewis, my friend. What did you bring for us today? And Juan, if you want to start the panel off with answering Lewis.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. I covered.
Well, I'm sort of looking to the deadline. I'm sort of like, I think there's 3 buckets of players that the Jays should consider talking about, and it's kind of like your difficult to trade players. I think it involves Green, Kiermaier, Turner, but then the other 2 categories are like, who are we trading? Who are we trying to get rid of? Get them at their highest value, and then there's the bucket of like, we're listening very intently. Like we're gonna, it's not an immediate yes, but if we get the deal we want. So I sort of want to sort those 2 buckets out, because I think trading, it starts with Yusei Kikuchi and Jimmy Garcia. Beyond that, like Bassett's got 2 years. Romano's a guy that if you're going to rebuild, a closer isn't that useful. What do you think? What do you guys think those 2 buckets look like?
Let me ask you this, Lewis, before anybody answers. What bucket would you throw a guy like Vladdy or Bo, who has 1 more year of team control, but obviously is much more valuable getting traded now versus next year during the All-Star break or even in the offseason, given that extra half year of or full year of control? Do you guys think that this is something that should happen this year if it's going to happen, or is it all balls to the wall? Let's try and re-sign him or lose him in free agency and get the qualifying offer draft pick?
It's a good question. For me personally, I would listen very intently on Bo. Like if the Dodgers come calling, they just lost their shortstop, their middle infield's a bit weak. If they come calling, I'm listening really intently. But with Vlad, I honestly think you extend him through the rebuild. You trust the player, you trust the tools, and you trust that you'll eventually get people around him that
But
will
will
make
he
him
sign?
and bring him.
It
I
takes
think he'll
2.
I think he will. I think
Okay.
he will. I think Canadian born. There is something to that. There's something to his
Totally.
name being attached to Canada. This father, I think it almost would feel wrong to trade him. Like it's something that, you just look at the players usually, but beyond that, like I don't know, like the amount of money the name Vladimir Guerrero Jr. makes for the Toronto Blue Jays is enormous. So I think it's just something that they're going to extend him, whatever that price may be. I don't think Ross Atkins will do it. I think the new person will come in and say Vlad is the cornerstone. I think Bo is someone that I would listen very intently on, but Vlad is someone that I would highlight as a cornerstone and that you
You can see
stick
it in the
with. I would
jerseys.
not
Like
trade Vlad.
you go to a baseball game now. If you want to look at I love jersey watching a game. That's just my fun thing to do. You will see 10 times more Guerrero jerseys than you'll see Bichette jerseys right away. I mean, hell, I'll see more jerseys from other players than I'll see Bichette. I'll see more Donaldson jerseys than I'll see Bichette jerseys. I think people just yeah, exactly. And I think that's the way it is. Right now, I think you just dump what you got to dump. I think that's where we're at right now. We just get rid of the excess that's holding anything else back. Well, I don't think Romano's going to get traded only for the fact that he's hurt and he had a setback the other day. Any of the guys that have been hurt this year, I don't think you're going to trade. I don't think they'll be traded at all. So you got to look at except for maybe Garcia. And we talking trades. I don't think we talk about Kikuchi and Jansen. I wouldn't trade either of them. Honestly, unless Kikuchi's kind of at a bit of a stale point at this point, I'm hoping it's just like a blip in the radar. I would extend them both. I think the one most invaluable person on this team that you cannot trade is Danny Jansen. Like if there's any talk for him, you keep him. We already got rid of Gabby Moreno, who could have been the next Jansen, and Alejandro Kirk is not the next Jansen. He's just not. He is the most important player to keep on this team because it's longevity, it helps bridge gaps between hopefully one front office to the other kind of thing. He's the one guy that I keep hearing about that if we trade Danny Jansen, I think it could be catastrophic to this team because if he sees grass is greener somewhere else and doesn't come back next year, what do we have?
How do you approach the future then? Do you see the
I think it depends
next
on
year's a
those things.
retool, or do you, because Kikuchi's 32?
Yeah, that's where I'm at
you
too.
see a retool. I'm at the point where you strip everything and restart.
I'm just
Anybody,
keeping the guys
anybody over 30. Anybody over 30, they should be on the block.
And Jansen's 29.
But I mean, you still have to have somebody to throw the games. Like we know we have no pitching in the minors. We don't. So if you get rid of Kikuchi, that's again another big glaring hole in the rotation. If he can keep pitching the way he is, like you can sign to a 3-year deal again. I don't think he loves the city. He stayed here over the winter because he loves Toronto.
But
so if he does,
that's the thing though, is I just
can sign innings eaters.
My problem with signing
right now too.
Yeah,
he's peak value. Kikuchi is peak value right now. He's going to be one of the most sought after pitchers in at the trade deadline, especially being the fact that he's a lefty. He's gonna fit into a lot of rotations really nicely. And I just don't think long term, and even long term, even if this is just a retool, you're still gonna need 2 years, in my opinion. And I don't think that Kikuchi signs for anything other than big money. He's got Scott Boras as his agent, and that doesn't necessarily mean that other agencies also wouldn't try and get the most money as possible. But there's just real contenders that he just fits on a lot better than the Blue Jays. Now, I do agree with Danny Jansen. And listen, I know Jansen is struggling right now. Welcome to baseball. You look at his career numbers, and he's been very good. And there's a lot of people that are frustrated with this team that are saying things like he's just a guy. He's nothing special. I disagree with that. I think Danny Jansen is a good bat. I think that he provides some real stability within this pitching staff, and he knows the organization inside and out. You're going to need a few of those guys around, even if this is a complete teardown. So I would be prepared to overpay for Danny Jansen. As for everyone else, I mean, outside of Vladdy, who I'm kind of with you, Lewis, I'd love to see a bridge deal where, maybe we lock him up for another 3 years and then he's a free agent at 28 and he can show that he actually has power again. I think it just fits for both sides. Johnny, go ahead, Juan, please.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I think the thing that this panel has failed to realize, and panels in past long tosses, because it's been a subject all season long. Guys like Kikuchi and Jansen are 3 healthy months away from open market, right? So there's a chance that they will be extended by the Blue Jays. I don't disagree with that at all, but it's not going to happen in season, and it's not going to happen before they get to have a conversation with every other team in the league. they've put in their 6+ years to get to this point, and now they're riding this high. Even if Danny Jansen is struggling right now, he's an offensive-minded catcher where it's hard to get offensive production out of a catcher. These guys are going to free agency. You know, whether you trade them or not, they are going to free agency. And they could resign in Toronto. They may love being in Toronto and may want to stay in Toronto, and it may take Toronto to overpay to keep them there based off the current structure of the organization and whether or not they have a playoff chance going forward in the next 3 to 5 years. But the fact of the matter is these guys there's no incentive for them to resign during the season. There's no incentive for them at this point, 3 months away, to hear what other teams think of them and value them at. So if you guys are hoping for Danny Jansen extension or a Yusei Kikuchi extension at this point through a struggling season where the Blue Jays are probably not going to make the playoffs, it's not going to fucking happen.
We're delusional.
No, it's not. Yeah, I'm not saying extend. It's not going to be an extension. He'll play the market for sure. But I think
we'll have to get him in free agency.
Yeah, but I think
we'll still
have a good chance because he's comfortable here. He likes it here, and if he sees a new GM coming with a better vision, maybe he'll want to stay.
Totally, I'm not ruling it out. I'm saying there's no way it's happening.
But yeah,
we're talking about the trade deadline, right? Like this. I mean, that's where we were starting at. Like, what do we do at the trade deadline? And signing guys as free agents or whatever, that's neither here nor there. It's like, who can you trade to get talent back? And I just look like, if there's any name over 30, I personally would be willing to part with it because all those guys are on the decline. Automatically they are. So Chris Bassett, fine, trade him. I love his pitching, but he's 35. You know, Gosman, who I think he would be perfect time to trade him because he is. Springer, I know it's nearly impossible, but if you can do it in any way, you do it. Kiermaier, he can be useful to some team. You get rid of him. Chad Green, he's going to be useful to some team. Move on from him. Tim Meza, he could be useful as a lefty for some team. Like all these guys. Richards even. Maybe not Barrios. He's 30. He's right on the cusp. I like.
But if you talk about somebody with value right now, Barrios is us trading a David Price, you know, like for the Tigers in 2015.
Yeah, I think Kikuchi's the guy sitting with the most value right now. But Barrios would have a lot of value because he still has a lot of contract left. So, but I don't see any sense in actually trading him. He's 30, he's still producing. The Danny Jansen thing, I wouldn't trade him. He's still 29. I would wait and see if you can re-sign him. As a free agent, not an extension thing.
Yeah,
like you said, it's not going to happen.
Like Juan said,
but try to re-sign him because he's a good catcher, and you need strength up the middle. I mean, it's one thing that this team is really lacking right now is like just that foundation of like you've got a good catcher, good shortstop, good center fielder, and you've got them for a long time. I mean, look at the Atlanta Braves. They just were like, boom, up the middle, locked down completely.
Well, it is ironic.
For better or worse. It was a brilliant strategy.
It's ironic that a lot of our good players are middle infielders, though, right? No, I was going to say most of our. That's the thing, though. We have middle infielders. That's what we have. We don't have corner infielders. We have a glut of guys who can play second.
But not studs.
Like exactly, and that's the thing. That's the ironic thing is that's our best players to trade are all middle infielders, and they're not really all that great, except for the guys that we've got now. Like it's a precipitous dip. And any trade we make, the biggest thing that we got to get back is pitching. We have to get it back because that's the one thing that if Kikuchi goes and we still don't have a fifth starter now, so that's 2 spots you got to fill. You better bring back somebody who's going to be a major league ready kind of pitcher that you can throw in Kikuchi's spot if you're going to trade him. Because if you just bring back bats, it's not going to work.
I have an Emerson Hancock that would look really good in a Blue Jays uniform in a Vladdy Guerrero trade. Just saying.
If you're gonna get Vladdy, give me Miller. I'll take Miller.
So Craig,
I'll make that trade to be honest.
Craig, I am going to throw to you here to hear your idea of what would be a Blue Jay successful trade deadline here. But I do want to just spin this question just a little bit because. And by the way, everyone in chat, like I'm trying to run a show here. They're being hilarious. My God, the jokes in here.
I've been having just as much fun watching that as well.
Like it's just been like I just keep laughing at everyone. And also, thank you so much, ground crew. We've got well over 100 of you, and you're also respectful of each other. Like, honestly, there's like chats over 100 people where people are just pieces of crap, and you guys have been like literally
That's where
tops.
my show is apparently normally, Scott, because I usually look through our chat and it's like, yeah, I'm not touching that.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
toxic
right.
waste dump.
Good
Yeah.
ground crew.
So
So if you, apparently that's where it goes on our show instead of on yours, Scott.
to everyone in the chat, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, would love it if you do that for us. Thank you so much. And now, Craig, I will throw to you. And my twist on this question is, if the Jays get real crazy, and again, I wouldn't want Ross Atkins making these sort of decisions in this scenario. Shapiro has either already decided that Atkins is done and has taken over the GM ship himself, or has fired him and passed on to somebody else as an interim GM. I don't want them making those decisions, but let's say the Blue Jays do actually get crazy and decide to move one of Bo or Vlad. Do you have a preference? Do you see a landing site for one of them? And what do you personally think their value is at this point?
So I'm going to answer half of that because part of that was the thing I was going to bring up in a minute ago. So I'm going to answer your question, Scott, but I want to tack on to Lewis's a little bit here at the same time. Lewis mentioned that he's trying to categorize everybody into three pieces here for what we're trading. I think there's really a fourth piece to it, and that is who in the hell on this roster is actually going to be here to help this team in the near future. Because right now, I'm in the school of thought that you trade Bo, you trade Vlad, you actually could have a product on the team or on the field next year that isn't just shit. There is some fun there. There's some up and comers. Maybe it does do something like what we're seeing with what the Pirates are doing this year, for example, right? There's some level of that. You don't know what you're going to get when you show up for spring training when you have a lot of young talent again. And I think that's what you get the quickest if you are trading those two individuals along with everybody else that we've been talking about. The Turners, Bassett's, all the above, right? But that's my goal. We have assets in hand right now. Try to hurry up and churn this so that it doesn't turn into a 4-year drought again, like we had after the 2015-2016 fun that we finally got to experience. That was the thing that killed me the most. We finally had it back in our hands after all those years of droughts, and then we sucked until we saw this current core come through, and we didn't get a chance to. And in the midst of that, I think that that's where this really needs to go. So I think it is those three categories that you mentioned, Lewis, along with that fourth. If there's anybody at this core that's currently at the major league level that is going to be here in 3 years. And I think they need to be thinking about that. So back to where you were saying, Scott, they have to have that plan in place. And that's why Ross Atkins can't do it. So
Love that answer. Love that answer. I think we have squeezed all the juice out of that great topic. Well done, Lewis. We are now going to throw to Jeff. What do you have for us? What's your topic? What are we talking?
Oh, I think I touched on it a bit earlier is when the inevitable happens and the front office makes a major shakeup, does Shapiro and Atkins go together? And like I said, I don't think they do. What I do see happening is Shapiro getting rid of Atkins. And when we talk about blowing up the front office, what needs to be blown up more, the analytics side or the development side? Because they both kind of go hand in hand in a way. They help each other out, but one is definitely a little bit different than the other. So do you blow up analytics or do you blow up your player development?
It's a good question.
I vote analytics.
Yeah, I'm kind of on that. They've got like,
really
like
good
20
question.
people in their analytics department. Like, it's ridiculous.
Lewis,
You don't need
Lewis, do you
It's
want
too
to
many
tackle this?
voices.
Yeah.
Start us off here,
Wait,
Lewis.
Too many analytics people, sorry?
What's that?
Did you say how many analytics people did you have? Like, what's the
There's
argument
something
there?
like 10.
Sorry.
There's at least, I think, about 20 people, maybe a little bit less than that, but it's a ridiculously large amount of people. Like, it's just like to me, it's like a make work kind of group in the front office. And I just think, Like you look at the batting is the same way. You've got, like you said, there's 4 guys telling people how to do things. In analytics, you got 20 guys telling you how to do things. I think we've just got too many people in the front office just in general. Like information is great, but too much information is overwhelming. And honestly, I think that's what's happened to Atkins. He's just got too much crap in his brain and he doesn't know what to do with it anymore. We need a fresh eye on the whole organization and let's blow the whole, like you said, blow the whole thing up. But do you blow it up with Shapiro?
He's having some technical fun here.
No,
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
right.
There
That's
he
all
is.
right. Lewis,
Okay.
Lewis, are you good to answer this, or do you want to tackle this?
It is what it is.
So yeah, Lewis, do you think we keep the analytics? Do you think we blow up player development? Like, what do you think is the main crux of the problem in the front office? Oh, man,
You know what?
Yeah.
We're gonna throw to Johnny. Johnny, listen, we know that the biggest Achilles heels within this organization is obviously the player development. They have not been able to, for whatever reason, especially on the pitching side, develop guys from within.
I'm gonna reset my PC.
Is there somebody who needs to pay for this? I guess is the question, Johnny. Should house be cleared? Like I love how, Jeff, you put, is it analytics, or can we just clean house completely?
I don't think so. I mean, that's no team has ever done that, and I
No.
don't see it happening. I've sort of apologized for Shapiro in the past, mainly because I think of his job as being more of a financial job than a baseball operations, like, yes, technically he's the boss of Atkins and all that kind of stuff, but he's really there to make Rogers money. And it's very arguable that he's done his job well in that respect. But it really disappoints me that he didn't fire Atkins last year when he had a glorious chance to. Atkins came out and did that train wreck of a presser. And it was just like, there you go. It's handed to you on a platter, buddy. This is your chance to get rid of this nitwit. And he didn't do it. And so now I'm at the point where I'm like, I'd like to get rid of the bigger nitwit as well, because I don't trust him either. I don't trust him to hire the right GM. Even if Atkin gets fired, I don't think he'd bring in the right guy. So
Yes, guy.
yeah, that's just a
That's all you get.
philosophical
That's all you'd get.
failing on a team. So yeah, that's my take on that little nugget.
Does anyone have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, isn't it John Farrell's kid that's part of one of the major parts of development on the scene? Like, I know you and I, Scott, at one point had a little bit of a chat about John Farrell and his old fiasco with here, but I'm pretty sure it's his kid that's right up there in the player development side. So is it kind of some kind of internal sort of like thing where John Farrell's feeding things to his kid? Yeah, they pissed me off to make sure the Jays are bad. Like, I don't know. Maybe it runs in the family. Maybe it runs in the family. I don't know. I'm all about conspiracies, boy.
I'd love to hear from Lewis here now that you're back, buddy. I really do want to know what you think about this analytics department, what this team needs to do going forwards.
Yeah, sorry I missed you guys there. I just went out, but they don't. They're honestly, the answer is their analytics department isn't big enough. It isn't expansive enough. It doesn't cover all the bases that it needs to. Like, you look at the Yankees, like, these guys have scientists in Australia studying the physics of all flights. They are like the Houston Astros. The reason the Houston Astros haven't been doing as well is because they fired a bunch of very smart people. Kyle Bodie who's the director of Driveline, was there during their whole postseason run, and look at their pitching now. Kyle Bodie's now one of the pitching directors with Boston, who has one of the best rotations in all of baseball. So I just think they're not smart enough. The analytics department needs to be bigger, stronger, with more minds. And then their player development and drafting is horrendous. Like, I think
That's a big
it's
problem.
hand in hand. It's hand in hand, but both need to be completely blown up and expanded. And funded more than just like building a facility in Florida and spending a lot on the roster. I think if you looked at the money spent on analytics Jays, it would be down near the bottom of baseball.
I actually
Going to
found
the
that metric.
chat here, Martin Sunland says whoever runs the analytics and development calls the shot over the employees. You don't need to chuck them all. So, and that's really what we've been talking about a lot of this show, is that there needs to be a new voice, and that doesn't just come from a general manager standpoint. I think there needs to be new voices at the top of most of these departments: performance, development. Everything isn't working. So do we need to gut everything? No, obviously you need some mainstay members who can pass along information that they've been doing and what's been going on, and even just to correct it. But I really do think that continuing, I mean, it's the oldest saying around, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. Of course, you look up insanity in the dictionary. It is not the definition, by the way, folks, but you get the
Well,
sentiment
you guys
here.
really aren't gonna like what I found.
But Craig, lay it on me. What did you find?
Apparently the Blue Jays have above average number of people in their analytics department as far as baseball goes. So they have a payroll of $171 million, and the other teams that are above us are the only team in payroll, or the only other teams that have bigger analytics departments, the Yankees and so on. Like you mentioned, Lewis, I can't believe I stumbled onto this literally pie graph here. But it says that we have 17, and the biggest analytics department is the Tampa Bay Rays, which is the opposite of that trend I just mentioned to you with 37. The lowest, I think this is ironically and funny, because the worst team in baseball right now is the Chicago White Sox, and they have a full 5 people apparently working their analytics department.
Oh my
God.
5.
Do you feel sorry for
5
those
people?
5
They're
people?
all
Oh my
teenagers.
God.
They're
Yeah.
all
Oh my
teenagers.
goodness.
They're like the
Covered
coach's
interns.
son.
They're all interns. Their analytics department is a department of interns.
Yeah, it's pretty
Jesus.
funny, this list. I don't know. Can I share on this? I don't know, but to that point, I just thought it was kind of funny that when I just stumbled onto this thing, it's very
That tells me
dependent
they
on the
do
team
have smart
payroll.
people. It
The one
tells me they
that's the
have smart
biggest
people.
So
Yeah, the one that's the biggest outlier on here to that trend is actually the Cleveland Guardians, because they're in the middle of the roll on payroll size, right? And they have 12 people in their analytics department.
Okay. So
So are
they're
Yeah.
even though they
They're
have fewer
efficient.
people than most, they have fewer people than most, but they're paying the best of the best. I like it. I actually like that.
There's a level of buy the right people in that too. Opposite of what the White Sox are doing, but not enough people and apparently not enough smart, right? To your point.
Yeah.
So are analytics people just dumb?
No, I think
Like,
I think
There's
We
15
I think
of
there
them.
are
I don't know.
smart
I can't say
people.
about all.
what's that, Lewis?
I think there are smart people. There are smart people in every organization. The White Sox,
Yeah.
there are smart people.
Yeah,
But I just don't think
correct.
their voices and their opinions and the things that they value are valued by the people at the top in the seconds.
Yes.
It's an ideology thing. I truly do believe that the Blue Jays ideology as to what they value in a baseball team is skewed, and it's not working.
It's defense and
There's
pitching,
no-
which is
there's-
okay.
There's no
But-
analytics department that would put out the batting lineups the Jays have for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Or pulveries. Oh, sorry, that did happen. Shit.
This is Long Toss episode 308. Our panel for tonight is Juan Forno of the Walk-Off Mariners. We have Jeff of 4040 Man. We have Lewis Foster back. And we've got Craig from Jaybird Watching Podcast, as well as our producer extraordinaire, Johnny Eaton. Thank you so much to all of you following along on YouTube. Shit, we've been well over 100 people for almost this entire stream. We're at 105 right now, 107 minutes in. So a big tip of the hat to all of you folks. Thank you so much. If you have not hit that like button, would appreciate it if you do. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, would mean a lot if you do subscribe. We are going to move along here. We're going around the panel right now for everyone's topic. I will now go to you, Mr. Eaton. Johnny, what do you got for us tonight, buddy?
Okay, so I'm going to keep this really, really quick, and it's not so much of a topic as it's a quiz. So
Uh-oh.
for all of you people in the audience and you guys, So I was looking up some stats this week, and just because I was genuinely curious about it. So by the position in the batting order, 1 through 9, how many top 10 for that position in the batting order, top 10 value for that position in the batting order, do you think the Blue Jays have? And what do you think those batting order positions are?
Where
can
does
start-
Vladdy?
So it's 1 through 9. It's not specific people. It's how the batters in the 1 through 9 slots have performed.
Gotcha.
I know
How
one
many
of
do you
them.
think are top 10?
I know one of them
You're
that's
funny.
probably the last one, which would be batting fourth. I'm pretty sure close to 30th right there.
Maybe the White Sox got you edged out a little bit, Jeff, but I don't know.
Any ideas how many are in the top there?
My guess
One?
is zero.
Zero.
0. 1, 0. Wow. Okay. Well, we actually have 3 batting
Wow.
order positions where it's
Really?
top 10. So those positions are 9th, they're 6th
Mm.
as 9-hole hitters go. They're 4th as 7-hole hitters go. And
To say 7,
10th
8, 9, isn't it?
They're 10th as 6-hole hitters go.
Didn't
And the
IKF
rest
play
of-
all
my God.
those?
Yeah.
That's all
I
IKF
think
right
you're
there,
right.
man.
That's
So
all
the
I
top,
can.
the top four, the top 4 are awful. First in the lineup is 29th in MLB. Second in the
Holy
lineup is
shit.
24th.
God.
Third is 15th. Fourth is 26th.
Wow.
Yikes.
It's
Oh.
bleak. And that I just did. I mean, I didn't plan my batting order comment to feed into this, but it worked out well. But yeah, that's an indicator of how they put their lineups together. And then
Oh, you don't?
another fun one. This is the second part of this little short quiz. By position, how many positions, including starting pitchers and relievers, how many of those do you think we have in the top 10?
I'm going to say 2.
Yeah, 1 or 2.
1 or 2?
Like I think
So
one?
Vladdy is definitely one of those.
I'm thinking starting pitching and Vladdy.
Yeah.
So Vladdy is one. The other one is so Vladdy's 7th in the league, and
Okay.
second base 7th.
Really?
Oh.
I wouldn't have
7th in. This
Well,
is
like,
just
all I-
batting production, not fielding, but like batting
But
production.
second base, I mean,
That-
we do
IKF.
we do have 8 second basemen on this
Yeah,
team.
exactly.
So
Schneider, Horwitz, IKF.
Yeah.
Starting
You
said they were
pitching
all
is
shit.
actually 15th. We're 15th in starting pitching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked that probably a month ago, Johnny. I think it'd probably be right?
Yeah. Guess what? Guess what we are in relief pitching?
27.
I don't want to know.
Dead last.
Bad.
Dead last.
Worst relief
I
pitching
will
in
say-
Major League Baseball.
Our relief pitching, we've had a lot of injuries though.
It's true.
You know,
yeah.
like it's the
Right.
complete opposite of last year, right? All like
Yeah.
think of all the guys who've gone down for the bullpen. Like if any half of these guys were able to stay up, we might have been okay. But Romano going down, Swanson going down, Garcia going down, Pearson went down. Like all these guys went down. So I think we didn't. We don't. It just goes to show our lack of depth, right there. Like I love Zach Pop. I think Zach Pop's gonna be great. I think we can keep him up here, whatever. But after Zach Pop, who do you bring up?
It's been
Like
more
little-
about who
You're
do
gonna
we
get more
send
like
down.
Ryan Littles.
Yeah, we had Littles and Burrs and these guys, like guys
Yeah.
I've never heard of, going, oh, major league debut. I didn't even know he was on our freaking organization, but all right.
Yeah. Yep.
30th.
well, that was a fun one, Johnny. Well done,
Yeah.
buddy.
That's the
All right,
entirety of my
so-
topic.
No.
That's the
And
best
Just
one
so
made it hurt more.
Yeah.
we've got 2 topics left, right? Craig and Juan. Craig,
Let,
do you
let
want
Craig
to?
go? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead here,
Yeah.
Craig.
Well, like Juan, I'm the other American in the room here, so I got to bring up a conspiracy theory, right? That's what we do, right? Okay, so
I'd like to go on record
Um,
and state I am not American. I just live in America. I don't want to be
Got it.
associated.
all
I
right,
need
I'm the
that on
American that
record,
wears the wrong
please.
hat.
I absolutely need that
Got
on
it.
record.
Got it. I'm the weird one here. Got it. So, anyways, I'm gonna go full conspiracy theory. I think there's a whole nother reason that Ross Atkin or not, yeah, that Shapiro was in Cleveland this weekend. And that is, I think that the GM shift is already moved, and he was there to actually market a trade for Bo Bichette to the Guardians. Is anybody
Oh.
have any thought and gas to that fire? Because, like I said, if you're looking at the Cleveland Guardians roster right now, the one glaring hole they have is at the shortstop. And they haven't had a franchise shortstop since they traded Francisco Lindor. So I thought there was some smoke to that fire, especially when we know there's going to be a round of firings going on here. So if somebody's going to stay around, maybe he's already brokering said, or at least laying said concrete down a little bit.
I think that's an interesting take, especially because obviously there are ties to Cleveland and there's a need for Cleveland. I know Cleveland is not going to pay Bo the contract that he wants, but having that year and
They
a
can
half,
afford
2 years.
11 million a year though, that he's locked up for an arbitration.
Well, that's exactly it, right? The year and a half of control, and they're probably looking at their roster and saying, "Hey, if we can take care of the AL East and the Yankees and the Orioles, we got a shot at the World Series for sure, right?" And
They
there's
definitely have
not
that.
the AL West and the Mariners, but if you're weakening and glaring hole at shortstop and you're going for it all right here, right now, I mean, why not? It makes a lot of sense, especially because they know that front office in Cleveland as a predecessor. So. Great conspiracy. I don't think it's that much of a conspiracy. I think that might be real life, man.
So we'll go to
Nobody's
chat
been
on
talking
this
about
here,
it. That's why
Craig.
I was like,
It's interesting.
am I missing
We'll
something,
go-
or am I just one digging too much into it?
So we'll go to chat on this conspiracy theory of yours, and RC Cyber Warrior goes, no.
I agree that I don't want to see it happen, but if you were going to start trading, you could be pilfering from a worse franchise, and they
No,
have a
for
lot
sure.
of young
And
talent on that.
They do have a lot of prospects in that top 100 if you were going for top end prospects. Matt Sweeby says absolute nonsense. Choot Charu says, nah, Shapiro was there for years. He probably there golfing with friends. Don't think it's trade related. And Mike says, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Fair shot. So you've got both sides of the road there. And even though I hated that one, I do see how there are ties and how you can make those connections.
So we don't have defensive shortstop first anymore, like a Spike Owen types, because I think that's what Rocchio would be. That Brian Rocchio, he's like 212, but he's got a great glove. Like he really
Great
does.
glove.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we don't have no more Spike Owens anymore in this day and age.
Yeah. But if you're trying to make
Okay.
that offense that much more scarier, that was kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm
He
not
could.
saying that Rocchio can't do what they need to do in the playoffs,
But
but
you're absolutely right.
is he going to
Yeah.
come up at like Rajay Davis for them like they did against us? That's about it, right?
Let Ochoa be a defensive substitution off the bench.
I mean, their
Yeah.
top six
Exactly.
guys are all have OPSs over 700. You know what I mean? Like Stephen Kwan. There's the guy right there who I thought we could probably have had him a couple years ago too. When we were looking at that Jose Ramirez and all that kind of stuff, I think we could have had him a couple years ago. Can you imagine that? Or if we had
Ugh.
Ramirez now.
You sound like Major League right now, like,
am.
oh, I wish we had him 4 years ago. And they're like, we did 4 years ago then.
The problem is
Okay,
where we're looking at this lineup card, like going, who the hell are these people? They suck. Or no, we
Yeah.
suck again,
Okay, so we are down to it. We've got 5 minutes left in the show here. Juan, I'm going to throw to you to bring us on home with your topic. What do you got for us?
Yeah, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I believe this panel is 92% Caucasian. I did the math. And I am assuming that you guys are all Caucasian. I apologize if I'm wrong. I think that the only color in this panel is 50% me. And I want to talk about I think. And I want to talk about the Rick Whitfield game. It's something that's important to me. I'm a firm believer that baseball is more than a game. I think baseball is the reason I'm the man that I am today. And I know you guys don't know me on a personal level, just as a media personality, but I think it's really cool, and I think it's important what baseball is doing to honor the Negro Leagues and what they did this week with the St. Louis Cardinals and the San Francisco Giants game. It was important to me. It was very emotional.
What a great couple organizations to choose too,
Yeah.
Couldn't
eh?
have done it better, especially
Yeah.
with Willie Mays passing this week and all the love and attention that he deserves and got. I think the one thing that stuck out to me was the pregame where Alex Rodriguez asked Reggie Jackson what it was like for him to come back to the field. And they let Reggie Jackson talk. They let him speak his piece. And I think it's
And you
important for
could tell
people.
they were not expecting him to take that angle
No.
at all.
No, and I think it's important that
Not
they
at
let
all.
him talk and they let him say, this is not an easy place for me to come back to. Just because we're celebrating it now and appreciating it now and putting these players like Josh Gibson into the record books of the MLB and how important that is. It's not easy for these guys to go through what they've gone through. Myself being new to the U.S. and experiencing racism myself, and clearly not to the same level, and I don't want to compare situations at all, but giving them the platform that they deserve and that they have deserved over the last century, and not in the last 3 to 5 years. Was really cool to see, and I would love to just give that homage and the spotlight that it deserves, because I think Reggie Jackson put it clearly. We're not celebrating what happened, but we're acknowledging the players that deserve that acknowledgement for sure.
I think with that, one of the greatest things that happened out of all this is not just putting the Negro League stuff in there, which is going to cause problems, but considering the air of things that are in the United States right now, the way things are going, to do that right now was such a bold thing to do. The right thing to do. But the blowback that you're going to experience from this for the next God knows how long, because there's people over there doing Negro Leagues. They not the same. They didn't play again. Blah 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 blah. Like you said, baseball is baseball. It's a cathartic thing. It's better than everything. It's supposed to be the grandest thing and represent what the United States is all about, right?
And it's my belief that the white players were so lucky to not have the Negro League players in the same league as them.
Oh yeah,
I
See it in
mean,
the
that's the
NBA and the
argument,
NFL
right?
right now.
Well, I mean, I love the
Josh
fact.
Gibson in Major League Baseball. Come on, that would have been amazing to watch.
Yeah, he's hitting 410, not 380.
Well, that's the
Exactly.
argument, right? I love the people who are like, well, how can you do that? I mean, the Negro Leagues weren't playing against the best players. And it's like, yeah, you're right.
You should have seen those
Neither,
players.
They were the best players.
neither was Major League Baseball. Let's be serious.
Like, I think one of my favorite things that ever happened in terms of that is the Negro League Museum. He wanted to do a rock star thing. Geddy Lee from Rush was a huge collector of baseballs. He just loves collecting baseballs, and he donated one of the largest groups of balls from the Negro League to and I think it's in Kansas City, right? That's where the yeah, and things like that. So people acknowledging who aren't black or whatever, you know what I mean? People, the white guys, acknowledging that that's one of the greatest leagues. And I've always found the Negro League fascinating, and I've always thought it was a wonderful thing they incorporated it in, because it was basically just, Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball, just the white boys and the black guys. And that's what it was. And the fact that we've combined them now the way we should have, God knows how long ago, is just, it's way overdue. I love it. I absolutely love it.
To mention the other part of being once again the American in the room, I can't say politically as to a perfecter time to do this whole thing and actually just shove it down certain people's throats, because it needed to happen. The Negro Leagues were equally as good as anything going on in Major League Baseball at that time, and it needed to be done. I cannot say enough good things about Major League Baseball doing what they did. And honestly, I'm glad that Reggie said what he said, because it should, to all the political landscape of things that are going on in the world lately. Somebody needed to tell it like it is. And Reggie was Reggie. That was the best thing about it. So it made it very nice and perfect to be putting a bow on it. But then the game was actually a good game too. So that was even better. But it put that point on stage. And I think Major League Baseball in general this year has done a lot of things that have showcased the Negro Leagues talent very well. To the Rickwood Field game here too, MLB The Show, showcasing what they've done in the Major League Baseball video game this year, even showing the fact that women played baseball in the Negro Leagues. Tony Stone being a massive, huge part of, I believe, the Kansas City Monarchs, but she played with Hank Aaron, and he loved playing with her. She was a great second baseman. So there was so many of those stories that are finally going to see the light of day like they should. And it was a perfect bookend to what was going on. So just want to make sure I said that. And then say, hey.
Love it.
Say, hey.
Johnny, Lewis, anything to add?
Reggie Jackson said everything to me. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm a white guy. I don't have anything to add. I think he said what needed to be said in a beautiful way, in an impactful way, and yeah, that's it. He was great.
Yeah, with the Rickwood game, they just set the standard. They just set the standard of what needs to continue, and it was a great. You know, it's been building, but putting it on this front stage like that, it's big, and they did it work. They did it right. They did it well.
And I think it's important to highlight, what these players went through. Reggie talked about how, he couldn't stay at the hotel with the team or somebody would burn the entire building down just because of the color of his skin. Like that. That's crazy. Obviously, nobody in this panel or anybody watching or anybody really nowadays goes through that kind of hatred. And for people to be educated on the history of what these players went through just to play the game of baseball is incredibly important so that we don't repeat some of those same mistakes, especially, Craig, you're going to have a bit of a better understanding it's an election year in the US and one side of the party being incredibly racist. And I have no problem saying that, in the media out loud. And
You're not wrong.
it just is, right? So it is important for an organization like the MLB to highlight the Negro Leagues and the players and Willie Mays and Reggie Jackson in the way that they are for sure, so that we don't continue falling down that problematic path that America might be on, and not to absolve Canada of any of their wrongdoing in the history as well in different communities as well, for sure.
No, one thing I always
Great.
wondered about the Negro Leagues, I just had one question about this. How were their facilities? Because I always figured like they probably didn't get the best of facilities to play in either. Or were
Yeah,
they
I think they had the largest backstops in the history of baseball, for one. But I think you're right. Yeah, the facilities were probably not to the
which
same
makes
standard.
you think that even the numbers could have been even better.
Yeah, they were saying that too during the game that Reggie Jackson or even Hank Aaron would have had significantly more home runs if they weren't playing in a field where the fence was 500 feet dead center.
You had to be Josh
Yeah.
Gibson to get it out of that
Yeah,
ballpark.
Yeah.
That's
it's
basically the
some,
way.
man. They were big.
And
All
for
right,
anybody that
gentlemen.
hasn't noticed this, look these guys up because it's worth listening to this story if you don't know what we're talking about in this piece.
It is. It is. Absolutely. Josh Gibson, look him up. Gentlemen, we are at the 2-hour mark, so we're going to wrap it up there. But I do wish to say thank you very much, all 5 of you, for being here. Great topics, Juan. Love the way we close this out. To everyone on YouTube, my God, there was well over 100 of you for most of this show. Thank you so much, Grounds Crew. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We run Long Toss every single Sunday. I know some of our regulars are going to be back next week. I was keeping an eye on the chat and everyone really missed Jen. I will pass that along to Baseball Jen. She's a gem. I know some mentions of Hey Kami. He's sick, but he'll also be back next week. Thank you to all of you. Appreciate you. And on that, we will call it a show. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.